Hey, Money Masters, how are you all doing? I hope that you guys are doing well. Sorry, I missed you all on last Friday. Was doing some traveling, but I'm here and also been working on kind of the format of this show because I actually want to make it into like an official podcast of sorts, if you will. And so we're going to be doing sort of a new format here today. Let me know if you like it. Give me some feedback, right? So today um, and before I get started, if you're watching live or watching the replay, you all know I always love to see who's watching, right? I love to, acknowledge you all and to come back and thank you all for watching. So please, in the thread, put your name, where you're watching from so that I can acknowledge you, whether I not acknowledge you live or whether I come back in the thread and just thank you for watching because you guys can be doing anything at this given point in time. There's so many other videos and things that you can be watching or things that you can be doing. So I don't take your time for granted. Okay. All right. So um, our first segment in today's show is what I would call ignorant money stories. Ignorant money stories. Okay, so this is where I scour the internet just for some crazy, insane stories as it relates to money or what people have done for money or did with their money. And so there's a story I want to share with you today, and this one actually took place in 2010. Very interesting. And it took place in Tokyo. So in 2010, officials in Tokyo went to congratulate this 111-year-old Sogen Kato on being the city's oldest man alive, because cities, town states do that, right? If they know they have someone living um, in their town, in their city, in their state, or whatever that is, the oldest person alive, they do go and they celebrate them. So they do this in Tokyo as well. So they went to the home and they were turned away by the man's 81-year-old daughter. So that begins to raise some red flags, right? Here we are, we're coming to celebrate this man. He's 111 years old, celebrating him as the oldest man alive in our city. And we go, and the 81-year-old daughter says, no, not today. Okay. Hey, uh, Apostle, how are you? Good to see you today. So the man's daughter says, nope, not today. Right. So this raised a red flag. So welfare officials came out, and then they were denied several times. They were unable to visit. So they became suspicious, and then they asked the police to come out and investigate. And guess what they found? They discovered that Cato's mummified body, you heard me right, mummified body, was wearing underwear and pajamas, lying in bed, covered with a blanket. Cato had been dead for almost 30 years. You heard me right. He had been dead for almost 30 years. Okay. Now, guess what the daughter was doing during this time? Right. She had hidden his death. Right. And so she had been collecting his pension. So the time they found her, she had collected 106,000 in pension payments. Wild, right? Wild. The things that people will do for money, the ignorant things people will do for money. So, I'm not sure what happened to her, but I'm quite sure she faced some consequences for doing that. And uh, then you've got to ask, like, well, what about the rest of the family, right? Didn't they know he had been dead all these years? Like, how did they let this go on? Just craziness, right? So let me know what you all think about that story. Let me know what y'all think about that story. Apostle says, wow, yeah, absolutely insane. All right. Now I want to talk about our what's our Freedom Friday chat for today. What is our Freedom Chat going to be about? And our Freedom Chat is going to be about giving, right? And its importance in wealth creation. Okay. Freedom and its importance in wealth creation. Listen, oftentimes we think that in order to become wealthy, we think that you have to be very, very prudent, right? Or very stingy. not very giving at all, right? And actually, it's the very opposite, right? And it is crazy how our brains think that in order to create wealth, I've got to like keep everything to myself, right? But that is not the case. It's actually the opposite, right? Generous people tend to be more prosperous. Then there just seems to be like this natural law, if you will, that people who give, okay, they receive in return. Now, I'm not saying if you give money, you're going to get money. If you give food, you're going to get food. Whenever you give, it can come back in a lot of different ways, right? And giving to others makes you less selfish. And less selfish people have a tendency to do better in relationships and in wealth building. And why in wealth building? Because wealth building often and a lot of times is about relationships as well. And so when you have good relationships with people, people tend to remember you when there's something good going on that you can prosper from, right? So it's crazy because it's like the idea, I'm going to say it like this, like the idea of being like this, having your hand open, where your money can just flow in and out, seems really weird, right? And I don't mean like literally you have money in your hand, you're just going to walk with your hand open. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about just being selfless in that way, right? It seems just like it's not common sense, right? Like you would want to close that up and you would want to protect it, right? It feels like if you don't hold on tightly to your money, right, that it's going to slip away. But the crazy thing is that the tighter that you hold on to your money, it does slip away. Actually, you squeeze it out. Have you like squeezed something so tight that it just popped out, right? That's in a sense what happens with money. The more tightly you hold on to it, then you squeeze it, you push it away, right? So giving works because it's really, as a child of God, it's in our blueprint to be givers, right? God, all over the scriptures, you can find verses on giving, and I may give you one or two here later. But giving unleashes great things in our lives, right? And this is why giving is important when it comes to creating wealth. Listen, we can't take any of this stuff with us when we go, right? Like, I've crazy enough, I have seen or heard of people, who say if I die, then put such and such a thing, some kind of material thing in my casket with me, bury my money with me. I've heard people say crazy things, and it's just like you can put it in the casket with you if you want to, but it ain't going with you at the end of the day. It's not going with you, right? So giving works because it's just, as children of God, as kingdom citizens, it is in our DNA, it is in our blueprint to give. So let me see if I can share a couple of scriptures with you all, just a couple. Luke 12:33, sell your possessions and give to the needy. Okay. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. Okay, so in the early Christian times, in the early church, people, there really wasn't people going with a lot of financial need, if you will, because people did whatever they had to do to make sure that that person was okay. It was common to see someone sell their possessions, right, and give to the poor, right? Philippians chapter 2, this is verse 4, the latter part of verse 4 says, don't be interested only in your own life, but care about the lives of others too. And then there's just so many scriptures in Matthew where it talks about taking care of the needy, taking care of the widows, taking care of the poor, just being, and then just being giving, right? And being a cheerful giver and all of these things, a plethora of scriptures. So if you just go to Google and Google giving scriptures, they're going to come up with a ton of them. Okay. All right. So in conjunction with talking about giving and its importance to wealth creation, today I wanted to talk about an instrument that you can use to give, right? Because even in our giving, we want to do it in a way that's decent and in order. And you may or may not have heard of charitable trusts. I'm not going to talk about those today, but that is the most popular way people have known um, uh, the wealthy to give. They'll set up this charitable trust. It's a trust that's set up for a particular organization or agency or whatever. But there's an alternative, right, to doing that, because trust can be very expensive. In fact, trust can be anywhere from $700. I've seen some upwards of $3,000 just to set up, right? And so if you're not a person who has millions and millions, but you do, it's very important to you to give, and you want something official set up to give, then you might want to consider what we call donor advised funds. Donor advised funds. Okay. So unlike the charitable trust, there's no trust setup fee. Okay. So already off the cuff, it is less expensive. Okay. So there's no setup fee, there's no account fees. Okay. And when you contribute, when you put money into the donor advised fund, then there is an immediate tax deduction. Okay. Anytime you put money into the donor advised fund, there is a tax deduction, an immediate tax deduction. Okay. Um, Now, once you put your money in this fund, you can't get it back. Okay. And the one of the things that I love about it though is that you have complete control, because here's the thing. Sometimes we give to organizations, we give to churches, we give to, whomever, agencies, and we would hope that they be really smart with the monies that they give, particularly if it's a huge amount of money that we're giving them. We hope that they would use it wisely. And there have been people who have also given organizations, churches, charities, they've given them stock, right? And what does the organization do, or what does the charity do? Well, they go and they liquefy that stock like immediately, right? And it's like, man, does anybody understand, when you get stock, right? But oftentimes they do that too because they have a present need. But then there's also someone who should be thinking forward, right? And making sure that they have money in the future. So the donor advised funds allows you to have complete control of who it goes to and when you want it to go to them, right? So you invest in, basically what you're investing in is a mutual fund. Okay, that's it. You're investing in a mutual fund or a portfolio of mutual funds. You designate who you want it to go to, and you can have multiple organizations, churches, charities that they go to. They just have to be 501c3 eligible. Okay. If they're not 501c3 eligible, you can't use this as a tool for giving for them. But they have to be 501c3 eligible. Okay. So you decide when the organization gets the funds. So you can decide that they get something monthly. You can decide to get some quarterly. You can decide to get it annually, whatever the case may be, but you retain control of that investment. You can then, be smart for the organization, allow that money to grow or whatever it is, because you retain the control, right? Um, 5% of it must be given away every year. So there isn't, once you open it, there isn't a year where you can just keep all the funds and not give anything out. Okay. 5% of it has to be given out every year. That's the purpose of it. Okay. It's a fund where you can give money. Okay. And then you can set up what they call PACs, PACs, pre-authorized checking drafts, right? So you can have it set up to where there's money that comes out of your account, whether it's monthly or quarterly or anything that goes into this fund, right? And the great thing about that is because when you're contributing monthly, and this is anytime you're investing, you're doing something called dollar cost averaging, which over time allows the portfolio to be even more valuable than just putting in a lump sum of money. Okay. So, and then you open the donor advised fund with $5,000. Okay. So for some of you listening, $5,000 may be like a whole lot of money right now, and that's fine, but you can be saving up until then, right? You can be putting that money aside and saving until you are able to open up one. Or maybe you already have the $5,000, the minimum 5,000, and that's great. This sounds like something that you want to do. That's great, right? I can assist you with that. Fees. Okay, so there's no account fees, but there is a 1.5% fee per year, an expense fee, an expense ratio fee. This is just for the management of the fund because there is a manager of the fund. Okay, and they need to be paid. They need to be compensated for managing the fund. Okay, and it takes like 2 weeks to set up, and there you have it, right? So definitely an alternative to charitable trust. It's less expensive, way less expensive, and you retain much more control about how and when an organization gets money. And like I said, you can have this fund be contributing to several different organizations. It can be one organization, or you can have it contributing to several different organizations, right? So if you're listening to this, I want to know from you, how many of you would consider doing a donor advised fund? And maybe you don't have the funds now, but maybe this is something in your future. How many of you, actually, I should ask this question too, like how many of you in your business model is giving a part of that, right? Like I know in my business model, giving is a part of that. So 10% of what of the revenue that my business makes or my businesses make is for giving, right? And so I certainly will be someone who is open to this donor advised fund. In fact, it is something that I'm going to do because we give out money monthly, my husband and I, to various different organizations. We give out to, and that's US and abroad. We give out, to individuals who may need some help. Um, but this is, like I said, a good way to give to organizations that's a little bit more controlled, a little bit managed, and it's smart because you're investing, you're growing that money, right? So 5%, you have to give 5% every year, and but the rest of that time, the money is in those funds, and it's growing, right? So it certainly beats sitting at the bank. Apostle says, yes, 10% is giving in my business. Absolutely. So it's children of God. I would hope that in our business models that is an official part of how we're set up, right? That we have a set allocation for giving, for charity, and because that's what God desires, right? That's what He would want from, and that's what a good steward would do. So this would definitely be an option, and maybe you can't do it right now. But even if you can't do it right now, let me know if it's something that you would even consider in the future when you are able to, right? I think it's just absolutely amazing. That's just me, right? Definitely a good option, alternative option to the charitable trust. All right. So that is our little segment today. Didn't want to be before you long, so I hope that you've enjoyed it. If there's any particular topic that you would like to see covered in these Friday segments and our Well Seed segments, let me know. Okay, let me know. And of course, like I said, this is the first time kind of doing this little new format, so I might feel like it may look like I'm a little wonky because I am, right? I'm used to just flowing about whatever topic I'm going to be flowing about, but I thought it would be nice to do a couple of different segments. So we did the ignorant money stories that will go. Let me know what you guys thought about that. And then, of course, our main topic today, giving. And then the third segment of this was just actually tying it to uh, not even just a concept, but a financial tool that you can use. Okay. So you guys have an amazing Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you here online in the group. Peace.